Okay, this supplementary communication is talking about the proposal because I really want you to be thinking about that sooner rather than later. And let me tell you why, first of all. You want to think about starting your project as soon as you can possibly do it because I have very rarely ever run into a project where I had more time than I needed. I mean, it's just one of those weird things. I heard there was a line from a movie I remember once when someone was talking about a ransom demand or something like that. He says, if you give them an hour, they will take an hour. If you give them 2 hours, they will take 2 hours. And so the fact of the matter is, when we are approaching a project, if we've got the whole semester, we'll take the whole semester. And so the idea is I want you to be able to use the whole semester, but I don't want you to take the last 2 weeks and basically do nothing between now and then. But worse, I don't want you to be developing your idea at the last minute. So the sooner you start, the sooner you can take advantage of all of that wonderful time that you have between now and the end of the semester. Because right now it's a lot, but it won't always be. Okay, so the proposal. Understanding what the proposal is. The proposal has a few key elements in it. And these are the elements I'm going to expect you to be thinking about. The subject. So the subject of your project usually gives you an idea what's it about. Like, let's say your project is about baseball. That's the subject of your project. You can do a lot of things about baseball. Or let's say we're talking about politics, or we're talking about music, or anything like that. So you can start with that. The format is going to give you an idea of what the project will be, not just what it's about. So, for example, you can have a drama about a football player. You can have a drama about an astronaut. You can have a documentary about an astronaut, which could be a very different type of program. And so the subject and the format really go together to give you the idea what it is. So, in other words, if someone says, what are you going to do your project about? And you haven't done this, you might say, well, I was thinking baseball. And so, okay, that doesn't really say all that much. And so lots of people start out with that idea. It doesn't really have anywhere to go. But if you say, we're going to do a documentary about Willie Mays or something like that, that immediately pigeonholes it into something that they can understand what it is, and they have some idea of what you're going to be doing. Now, the audience, it's important that you always think of that. Who's going to want to watch this? It could be a very limited audience. It doesn't have to be a lot of people who'd be interested, but you should have some kind of an audience in mind, because otherwise you're not really going to know how to do it. So, for example, if you're doing an educational program intended to be viewed by scientists, you're going to use a completely different vocabulary than if you're talking to 8th graders. You know, even though you could probably make some jokes along those lines, but let's keep that one to ourselves. Okay, the length. About how long do you intend to do this? So basically you've got a choice between a video short, which is usually anything from 1 to 5 minutes long or something like that, and up until around half an hour. Once you hit half an hour, then it can still be a video short, but it can also fit into a television time slot. So normally when you think of half an hour, that's like a TV episode. Anything from 1 hour to 90 minutes is what we call feature length. Now, I'm not necessarily suggesting you try to do a feature length film, but there's no reason why you couldn't consider it. You know, sooner or later, that if you're going to do it, you want to mention it here. You want to know that going into it, because a feature length project would require a whole lot more time and resources than a video short. And so basically have some idea about how long you think this is going to be. How much is it going to cost? And so even in a college project, there is some kind of cost involved, because if you're working with other people, you got to buy them something to eat and things like that. You got to travel someplace that requires gasoline, or some sort of transit costs. If you need to use a location where you have to pay them to use it, that all adds up. Now, fortunately, you don't have to spend $1,000 a day borrowing the equipment because we provide it for you. Or more to the point, you've already spent the money, we're just letting you use it. The approach. Are you going to do a cinema verite style documentary? Or is it going to be a more traditional approach? You have all kinds of possibilities there. Is there something about the way you're going about the drama that makes it unusual? For example, is it like the movie Memento, which is shot out of order? or something like that. The talent. Is there somebody involved in the project that people might know? And the reason why that's important is because, let's say you're doing a drama, and for some reason Tom Cruise agrees to act in your video. That immediately puts it in a different category. Now, of course, if you're lucky enough to be able to do that, I will be glad to get involved. But other than that, it could be, is there somebody that has some credentials that we should know about? If it's a documentary about, let's say, epilepsy, are you interviewing doctors who are known in this field for that purpose? That sort of thing. Okay, the personnel. Tell me about you. You know, we are going to do this. We can do this because we have these credentials. And so you might think, well, I don't have any credentials. We'll show you do. You know about the subject you're doing, I would imagine. And maybe you have some background in camera work. Maybe you have some skill with audio. Think about what you're bringing to the table, especially since eventually you're going to be combining this with somebody else or team members, and you're going to be pooling your resources. So be thinking along those lines. Okay, now why are we doing this? Why do we do proposals? The proposal sells the project to others. So people you don't know about, who you may be asking for money or resources, you want to give them something for their time. You want to give them some reason why they want to get involved with you. And the proposal helps you get it straight in your own mind. Because, I kid you not, as I said during class, there are loads of people who have no idea what they're actually attempting to do, and they're going out there, spending somebody else's money to do it. And if somebody is able to do that, in some ways I applaud them, because I've never been able to get money out of anybody. But at the same time, I don't think that's right. Meaning that if you're going to do a project, you have to, at least in your own mind, know what you're getting yourself into. And if you're bringing other people in with you, you don't want to waste their time either. So it's always good to have this under control. Everybody has ideas. There's loads of ideas out there, but most of them never go anywhere. The proposal makes it work out better. Most ideas go nowhere, as we say, but plans have a chance. And plans lead to outcomes. What is your hope here? What are you trying to get out of this? And so that's why you write a proposal. Because then at least this is what we want. We want a documentary about X. Okay, let's put this in the perspective of the phases of production. If you have pre-production, that ultimately leads to a plan and a script. And generally all of the necessary nuts and bolts to make it work. Production leads to footage. When you're shooting, your goal is to generate whatever it is that you're supposed to be editing with. And so production isn't done if you still need more footage. Pre-production isn't done if you're not ready to shoot. And post-production leads to a finished product. So that's about the only one. Of course, post-production never really ends because there's always more that you could possibly do. But at least you've got a finished product at that point. That's where you can move into a later stage of post-production, such as distribution, which we'll talk more about later. So think of these things when you put together your proposal.